I'll never forget that, because that was the turning point. Because I mean, at that point, I was so sure, I was so convinced that I was broken, I was busted. I have this mental problem that just can't be helped, that can't be fixed. I'm too far gone.
Yeah.
I'm just bottom of the barrel. Like, I didn't even feel like a human being. Like, I just felt like just a waste of space.
Yeah.
And it just felt like there was just this, like, just darkness just pressing down on me everywhere I went. It was just like so much pressure, so much, anger and sadness and hopelessness
Yeah.
that was just consuming me. And so the Lord rescued me, and he's like, put the gun down and call your parents.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Porn Free Millennial Podcast. This is episode 65, and I have a special guest here, Alex Perez. Hey, Alex. Thanks for being on today.
Thank you.
A little bit of a backstory here. It's pretty interesting. So, I've had a lot of guests on the podcast, a lot of different folks sharing their stories. How Alex and I got connected was actually his mom on Substack. Her name's Kit Perez. She interviewed me on her podcast called the Change the Game Podcast, Season 1, Episode 13, Fragmentation, Addiction, and the Cost of Living a Split Life. Really interesting questions that she asked me. I thought it was a really neat conversation. And then as we were talking, the topic was about my life and about my perspectives on the relationship with porn, how it affects you. And as she was talking with me, she's like, my son, he, had this in his life, and he's actually helping people now at his church with ministry work, with Pure Desire program, which is another really good podcast to listen to, is the Pure Desire podcast. I haven't really talked about that as much on Porn Free Millennial, so it was really neat because I was talking to her, and then we started to talk to each other, and met online and talked for a little bit about how we wanted to do the podcast, and now you're on today. So thanks for being on, man.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's an honor and it's a privilege.
Yeah, and I'll make sure to put that podcast I had with Kit, your mom, on the description here. But yeah, this is about you and your story, and I think we want to dive in a little bit too about the theme of just you start to break some change in your life, and then really the next step I think in recovery that's beautiful about it is you start to help other people out. So I'll hand it off to you, man. Tell us a little bit about your relationship with porn, how that developed, and how you were able to break free and help others.
Oh man, I guess that's a long
Yeah,
story,
it's a
but
lot. Yeah.
it's kind of that way with everybody, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
right.
it started. I think I was either 10 or 11. I was around that age, and I was in a social setting, and I heard an adult say, a certain website, and curiosity killed the cat. So my mom worked. She would work during the nights and then come home and then sleep. So then it was kind of just me on my own.
Hmm.
And, so I was curious. So I went onto the computer, and, one thing led to another. And then you end up just searching stuff out. And, at first, as you should be, as anybody would be, I was kind of grossed out by it.
Sure.
And then, eventually you kind of have that just in the back of your head, just kind of clawing like, well, I mean, we could look at it one more time, and then, oh, just one more time. And then eventually, next thing you know, you're into it. And it is really like a slippery slope. And I guess I didn't even really consider it an addiction until many, 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 many years later, because I mean, you just kind of you tell yourself the same stuff to justify it. Like, oh, I don't have an addiction. I'm just bored. Or, oh, I mean, well, there's nothing else to do. Might as well just, and so, you know, I, I tried to stop off and on throughout the years. I mean, I was addicted for, I don't know, 15, 16 years.
Yeah.
And it was just off and on. And, at some point there were definitely some low points during the journey where I was like, am I really doing this right now? Is this really, am I really at the depth? Like, I used to make fun of people like this, and now I am that guy. I'm literally that guy. And, there's a lot of points in my life where I was stooping down to that level, and I
Mm.
never would have thought that I was doing the things that I was doing, or even watching the things that I was watching. And obviously, I'm not trying to go into any detail because I don't want to
Yeah, right.
have anybody stumble. But I mean, it's like you just that is how fast, but how subtle, I guess, sin can take over your life, and how addiction can take over your life, because it's never overt. It's never just like I mean, for a bad term, I guess, nobody ever walks up to you and is like, "Hey, you want to try crack?" Like, it's not like it's never just you never just
Right.
start with crack.
Right.
But after a few years of addiction, you realize, oh, hey, I'm kind of a crackhead. This is not where I thought I would be. I'm doing things to satisfy this dark side of me that I
Mm.
never thought I would have to do, and or I never thought that I'd even want to do. And
Sure.
it's kind of like when you're not acting out kind of in between your relapses, you feel totally normal, but then it's almost like this like switch happens and this trigger happens,
Right.
and then you just kind of go into autopilot, and it's almost like your conscious and your morals even just kind of take a back seat, and you do what feels good. You watch what feels good, and you just slip right into it. And it's like, it's all, I'm not going to say you're not in control of yourself, because you're always responsible for your actions, absolutely. And also afterwards you're like, oh crap, I just did it again. All right, that's all right, here we are. But i I mean, I would date people, and I would see people kind of off and on while I was an addict, and it definitely affected my relationships. And I mean, every possible way. It painted a reality that you don't realize isn't actually reality until you're out of it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
because
Right.
because porn tells you what sex is supposed to be like, and it tells you all these different things about like what you think sex is really like, but it's not. It's none of that is real. It's all staged, it's all fake. But then when you're a young kid, 16, 17, and you start kind of exploring that stuff, then it's like it just gives you a false image of what the design for sex really is, right? Like I'm definitely, I don't want to say a devout Christian, but I follow Christ. I am a Christian. I did recently get saved, I think like three years ago now, but that is kind of what it took to get me out of my addiction.
Mm.
Was, I got to a point where I was married, and then that's the other thing too. My first marriage, I was on the altar. I encourage everybody to you have to break free of your addiction before you get married. You just have to. If you're in a relationship, if you're dating somebody and you're watching porn, A, you're cheating on them. That's what that is. And B, you have to break that addiction. You have to find victory before you get married. Because it will harm your marriage more deeply than I can imagine just about anything else. Because it's putting your spouse through a level of betrayal. It's putting the people around you through a form of betrayal too, because you're lying to them too.
Yeah.
And I was on the altar, um, like watching my soon to be bride come down the aisle, while I was thinking, I'm still a porn addict and she doesn't know about it. And it's like,
Mm.
that's the most sickest, grossest feeling imaginable.
Mm.
Like, you see like these videos of brides walking down the aisle and like their husbands just breaking down in tears. And I broke down in tears, and I can't honestly say it was entirely because I was seeing my soon to be wife for the first time. Part of it was shame. I mean, a big part of it was
Mm.
shame. Big part of it was guilt. Big part of it was just so much weight just coming down on my shoulders. Like, dude,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
Right.
And at that time, I didn't find Christ. I didn't have that hope of victory. It was like it was all on me to try to figure this out, and that's a
Mm.
lot of pressure, and that's a lot of stress for anybody to go through. And I think that's part of the reason why it's easy for people to stay in their addiction, because I mean, how can you possibly beat this thing alone? But
Right.
then again, that's what Satan wants you to believe. That's what the enemy wants you to believe, is that you have to try to figure this out on your own. You have to leave it up to your own strength to find victory. You got yourself into this mess. You're going to get yourself out of it. It's just not the truth. It's not. You need people. You need relationships. You need God. I mean, God's the only one with the, he's already beaten this. Jesus has already died and overcome sin and resurrected to beat all of this and pay for all of it. And so, it got to a point where, in that marriage, it was very abusive both ways. Like I'm not saying she was the only problem. I obviously was very much also a problem. I mean, I was watching porn. I was lying to her.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that, she would do or that I would do that would feed into it. And then, she had a lot of her trauma, and I'm not trying to sell her out. I'm not going to say her name or anything.
Yeah.
Obviously I respect her, but
There's hurt there, right? There's pain.
yeah, yeah. And, she had a lot of trauma and baggage that she brought into the marriage that would cause her to be abusive and hurtful and just not, I guess, healthy to be around. But then the way I would cope with that is I would go to what was safe, safe, and I would just watch porn. And then
Right.
I would, out of spite, when I would try to maybe even initiate things, and she would turn me down, I would feel that rejection. I would take that as rejection, even though it wasn't. But I would take that as rejection. I'd be like, all right, well, you know what? I know where I won't be rejected. I'm just gonna go self-soothe that way. And
Right.
you start doing it out of spite. You start doing it. You start using it as a weapon almost. And so this was, I think, in what is it, 2026 now? Or whatever the math ends up being, like 2022, 23.
And how
I
old are
don't
you,
know.
by the way? Just
28.
28. Okay.
28, yeah. And I got to a point where I had written a suicide note on my phone,
Hmm.
and I'd really thought about it for a long
Yeah.
time. And, she had a gun, she had a pistol that I planned on using. And, at one point it got to the point where I was suicidal and I had the gun to my head, but it was
Wow.
the loudest but quietest that I've ever heard God or the Holy Spirit say something, and
Hmm.
it just all he said was, Alex, put the gun down, call your parents.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget that, because that was the turning point. Because I mean, at that point, I was so sure, I was so convinced that I was broken, I was busted. I have this mental problem that just can't be helped, that can't be fixed. I'm too far gone.
Yeah.
I'm just bottom of the barrel. Like, I didn't even feel like a human being. Like, I just felt like just a waste of space.
Yeah.
And it just felt like there was just this, like, just darkness just pressing down on me everywhere I went. It was just like so much pressure, so much, anger and sadness and hopelessness
Yeah.
that was just consuming me. And so the Lord rescued me, and he's like, put the gun down and call your parents. So I called my mom. And keep in mind, I had not told anybody at any point in time that I
Hmm.
was addicted to porn. This was a secret that I was ready to carry to the grave up until that day.
Wow, that's a lot of weight, man. That's like
Dude,
so much weight.
it sucked.
Gosh.
It
Yeah.
was it was immense. And so, I called my mom, and I was like, I have a problem. I need help. I'm not in a good place. And you know, everybody's always like, parents have this sixth sense, like they know their kid and all that. And
They do, man.
you know, I hate it because I like to think I'm my own man.
Right.
you know. And so she's like, "Well, I'm gonna take a wild guess and say you're struggling with porn and it's caught up to you." And
Wow.
I'm like, "Oh, all right, way to just go straight for the jugular." But
Right.
I mean, if you've talked to my mom, and if people read her Substack, they'll know that she's a very direct, straight to the point, like no BS kind of gal.
Right.
And so she went straight to the jugular, and I don't even remember what I said, but I don't even think I even admitted it at that point. I probably said something stupid like, I can neither confirm nor deny, or whatever. I tried to play it off because I try to be funny, but
Yeah.
she was like, all right, well, what are you doing right now? And I was like, honestly, my wife's at work. She's a firefighter, so she would be gone for a day or two on end, and then she'd come home and have like 3 or 4 days off. But I was like, honestly, my wife's at work, and I'm just sitting here with my thoughts, and I'm not in a good place right now.
Mm.
And she was like, okay, well, can you make it until tomorrow? And I was like, I can probably do that. Okay, I'll try to make it till tomorrow.
Yeah.
And she was like, okay, well, I'm gonna give you my pastor's number, and I'm gonna have you call him. He's already expecting your call. I'm gonna
Wow.
have you call him at this point tomorrow. So I was like, okay, sounds good. And it was weird because it was like this kind of tiny little, like, just tiny little, like, flicker of something. I didn't even, it was probably hope, not to sound like cheesy or anything, but that's really what it was. It was like somebody opened a door, opened a window, and there was just like a draft of hope just in the back of
Yeah.
my mind. Like, maybe, what if this
Mm.
works? What if this is the start of a path that leads me to victory? What if I can overcome this? What if there's a
Mm.
way? And so then yeah, I mean, I just killed time, did everything I could to get out of my head and avoid, those demons that I was fighting, and, and just, uh, it was kind of hard too because I was also working nights, and so it was the first and only time I've ever worked nights, so my sleep schedule was jacked. It was all kinds of wonky, so I was sleep deprived, and it was bad. It was really bad. I did the cardinal sin that everybody, a veteran night shifter, would tell you to not do, and that's, maintain your sleep schedule even on your days off, because if you just go back to being a day person like on your days off, you'll totally screw yourself over. You
Sure.
Once you're doing nights, you're doing nights.
Yeah.
But I was going back and forth, and so my brain had no idea up from down, left from right. I was so disoriented, and so eventually, the next day came, and I called Pastor Shane, and I explained to him kind of everything that was going on, and he's also a no BS kind of guy. He worked on power lines for 20 years, so he's very, like, blue collar, very, very direct, and I appreciated that because I had gone to churches my whole life, and I never really took any of it seriously because I saw a lot of hypocrisy. I saw a lot of people
Sure.
being fake. I saw a lot of people just not being sincere and just only caring about appearances. And I just, like, dude, I don't want to be a part of that crowd. Like, Christians, and, I'll even still stand by this statement to this day. It's like, Christians tend to be more judgmental, or I'll even say believers, as in just people of any faith, tend to be more judgmental than non-believers. The world can oftentimes be less judgmental than believers. And that's not really, I mean, that there's a whole conversation about biblical judgment that I'm not going to get into now, but
Yeah.
there's a right and wrong way to do it. But either way, what I was seeing was a lot of hypocrisy, and I just didn't want to be a part of it. And
Yeah. I
so
can relate to that.
yeah, I brushed it off to the side, and I was like, whatever, I'm not going to do that. But the way that Shane talked to me, I told him everything that was going on, and it was kind of funny because he's like, man, sounds like you got a serious problem.
Mm.
Like, well, yeah, that's why I'm here. Like, that's what? That's literally why I'm here.
Yeah.
And so, he led me through the gospel. It was fantastic. I can't remember exactly how he worded it, but he asked me three questions, and the last, or four questions, and the last one, I mean, it was like, the first one was like, do you understand that you are broken and you're not perfect and that you're a sinner? And I'm
Mm.
like, yeah, okay. And he's like, do you understand that Jesus was a real person, that he was God made flesh, and that sin has to be paid for, and so he paid for that with his life. This is a real event, that this really happened, 2000 some years ago. And I think I just combined the second and third question, but you get the point. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, so you understand all you need to do is believe that your sins are paid for, and you're good. You're set. You have the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit will come into your life and help you overcome these issues. And I'm like, okay. So he's like, okay, so all you have to do is just admit that, profess your sins, admit you're broken, and say, Lord, I accept you as my Lord and Savior. And I was like, that's all I got to do, huh? And he's like, yeah. And then there's like a long pause, and then he's just like, so what are you waiting for? And I was like, oh man, this is it. I can do it. I can do this. And it's like right there.
Wow.
I was just filled with so much hope and so much, like, excitement. It was the happiest I felt. And it was like, it wasn't even like, I mean, like, the shame and the guilt and all that stuff, it was still there, but it was almost like, okay, I'm kind of a nerd, and so bear with me here. So have you seen Lord of the Rings?
Oh yeah.
Okay, sorry. I feel like that's a
No,
blasphemy
no, it's
question. Yeah.
okay. It's okay. Oh yeah.
But
Big
so
Lord of the Rings nerd.
the second movie, where they're about to just give up in the Battle of Helm's Deep, and they're just like, all right, just ride out with me. Let's do this. And it's just
Yeah.
hopeless, right?
Right.
Then Gandalf shows up at the last second, and he's
Right.
just comes down and just wipes out everybody. Like that's what the Holy Spirit did. Like it was
Nice.
just fantastic. It's the only way I can really kind of put that together. But it was the first time in a couple years that I had really, actually the first time in the entire addiction that I really had hope.
Wow.
And it
And
was,
that's a
man,
serious statement, right? Because I mean, you said, what, like 15, 16 years?
yeah,
That's a long time, and I think you said you're 28.
yep,
Gosh, I mean, that's more than half your life.
yeah,
And I mean, you can then think about just before you were even exposed to porn, right? So pretty
yeah,
much, I mean, ever since you were 10, like that's a lot, that's a big part of the life where you don't feel like you have hope in this realm. And
yeah,
it's a very and it's something that we get addicted to, that we have this compulsion to go to,
mhm,
and it doesn't really fill us up. It hollows us out. It
mhm,
sucks away that energy. And I want the audience to really hang on that, right? Because I'm sure that's something that's really relatable. Your story is very relatable with mine. I mean, as you're talking, I'm like, yes, that's me, that's me, that's me. But man, that sense of hope, right? To understand that, hey, there's a way I can live a different life.
mhm,
That's not this. Like
right.
that's phenomenal.
Yeah, and the thing is too, it's I'm not saying like that day I no longer ever struggled with
Yeah,
addiction. Like
sure.
it was never just like, it
Totally.
just
Never, it's
vanished.
never quite that way either, right?
No, and I wish it was. And I'm not saying God can't just take something away from somebody,
Sure.
but it is just you still have to do the work, and
Totally.
I think in the book of Romans it talks about renewing your mind.
Hmm.
And what that is, it's a command.
Right.
We are called to renew our minds. Like the Holy Spirit will renew our mind, but we have to do the work, right? And that's what Pure Desire actually talks about through this concept. And it's, I guess, not even a concept; it's a science called neuroplasticity.
Right.
And you've probably heard of it. I mean, it's basically, one of the sayings that they say is neurons that fire together wire together.
Hmm.
And so it's like if you associate certain behaviors with certain emotions, then or emotions with certain behaviors, then that's what you're going to go to. So gosh, I don't even have a good example, but I guess in this scenario, like, okay, I'm going to go to my wife and try to initiate sex, but then she's going to reject me. Okay, well, I know the fix for rejection. What do we do, Alex, when we feel rejected? Okay, we go to this website,
Right.
or we go and we do this thing.
Right.
What do we do when we're feeling angry or hurt? Oh, well, men, we tend to shut down. We tend to isolate. We tend to not talk to anybody anymore because we just need alone time and we just need to be by ourselves.
Sure.
Whatever, because we need to be in solitude. But I kind of make fun of, like, the I'm not trying to get political at all, but I do kind of make fun of toxic masculinity because it is
Hey, me too.
it's a real thing. It's a real thing. But it is funny because we are taught to, like, just shut down our emotions and just lock it all down, but
Yeah. Right.
that perpetuates a porn problem, to be honest,
Yeah.
because that's how we express our emotions, is through that.
Yeah, and I think and I learned through therapy too, that I think there's a difference between isolation and solitude. I think sometimes solitude can turn into isolation, right? But I think solitude for men and women, of course. But I mean, solitude, I enjoy, going to the mountains by myself, going fishing, having some
Mhm.
alone time. But, like you said, you don't want to become isolated. And I think that's what you're talking about, is when
Yeah.
we shut down our emotions, we just shut down. We don't want to talk about anything. I think that is a behavior that's trained with porn, right? And I think you were talking about this too with the marriage, was that would be the response. I mean, that's a relatable thing to me, in my past marriage as well, was you'd have this craving for that release, but the release would come through an isolating act, which
Sure.
is porn itself, I think. I think porn comes with the territory. It is an isolating thing.
Mm.
It's a thing that you do in private. It's a thing that you don't want to talk about. It's a thing that you typically want to hide.
Right.
And then it breeds more isolation,
Hmm.
you
But if
know?
you think about it, you like it causes you to isolate yourself because what comes with it is, oh, I'm doing this thing I know is wrong. I know it's wrong. I know it's bad. I know that people look down on it. So now that I'm doing this thing that people look down on, I can't go to these people because they're going to look down on me. They're going to think that
Yeah.
I'm weird, I'm gross, I'm, just this like vile person. If they only knew who I really was, if they
Ooh,
only
yeah.
saw me for who I really was.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, right? Is there's a difference between guilt and shame, right? And that's also a very common topic among people that have experienced victory over porn is the difference between guilt and shame, right? Shame says that you are bad. You did a bad thing because you suck. You're terrible. You're this, bad, awful person. Guilt is you did a bad thing, but here that doesn't change your value and who you are and who God sees you as,
Right.
right? There's this concept called cognitive diffusion, which is your thoughts and feelings are not your identity. Your
Hmm.
thoughts and feelings are not who you are,
Hmm.
right? Like you see all kinds of people making their identity from various things.
Sure.
I just ran that Spartan race that I was telling you about, and there was so many people there whose entire identity and their entire life was being a Spartan. Like there's people whose entire identity. I live in Montana, for crying out loud. Everyone and their mother's identity is guns and beer. Like that's, I mean, like it's just, I mean, there's plenty of churches out here, and so there's a lot of people too that it's kind of a funny fine line, right? There's these people that identify with like being a Christian, but then they go and they do all these things that don't really line up with what the Bible tells them to do. But it's like a lot of people pull their identity from the wrong stuff. But what I have found that has really helped me and really grounded me and centered me and anchored me is finding my identity in Christ. Like
Sure.
I've done a bad thing. I say these messed up things and I fail and I still currently make mistakes to this day.
Yeah,
Um,
we all do.
but but I know that Christ still loves me. One of my favorite sayings is that Christ already factored in your stupidity when he died for you. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, all right, that's fair. God already knew I was
Yeah.
going to do all this stuff.
Yeah, I think that's something too. I think as a Christian that I got wrong for a while was just feeling like I had to be perfect,
Hmm.
exactly like Christ to be able to be a Christian. Whereas I really think what it is you're pursuing that relationship with intention.
Yep.
And I think the guilt kind of comes from that, right? Because I think if you don't have any guilt about it, I think you said cognitive diffusion. I was thinking about another cognitive term would be cognitive dissonance,
Yeah.
where you're just pretty much blurring out that moral framework. And I did that for a while to where I was like, well, maybe if I don't even think about it, maybe if I just kind of have this cognitive dissonance where I just say, hey, I know that this is going against my values and I know that, this isn't moral. This isn't really what I want to do deep down inside. But I'm just not going to think about it. I'm just going to not even try to define it in my life. And I tried that out for a bit. That didn't quite work out for me. I think that
Yeah.
because it's still, I've used an analogy before, but it's almost like you're running up like this credit card limit and there's a balance that's still due at some point, right? Like there's still a balance
Hmm.
for those actions that you take. And like you were talking about, in using like the two towers analogy with Gandalf, which I do remember when I saw that in theaters as a kid, I stood up, clapped. It was awesome. I was like cheering.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's a
It's
great
so
moment,
great.
right? It's just the
Oh
best.
yeah.
That and the Pelennor
Because
Field.
you forget about it by the time to that point in the movie, you've already forgotten that Gandalf's coming back.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then you're just like, oh wow, he's there. Great. This is awesome. But something symbolic about that scene too is, when they're rushing down, he's with the Rohirrim, the reinforcements. There's this beam of light that's coming from Gandalf the White that blinds the front lines of the Uruk-hai that are besieging Helm's Deep. And I think with what you're talking about too, this moment where the light comes into your life again, like that sliver of light, that sliver of hope, I think it allows you to actually see that, hey, there is a way for me, and the way through Christ to where, hey, if I shine a light on this thing, if I shine a light on this part of my life and I'm honest about it and I'm truthful about it, and, not just with other people, but I mean, really, it starts with us, right? Like ourselves, and then our relationship with Christ to where we can bring it to Christ. And I think have really, I think what I think, let me see if I can get this term right, but it's something sorrow. There's a term for it, but it's basically where you actually have like sorrow for the sin that you had, because it severed your relationship with Christ. And it's something that I felt, my last relapse that I had, like I felt actual like remorse and guilt and sorrow about it because I felt like the how it severed my relationship with Christ, and how, like you're saying, when that autopilot takes over, you're basically saying, hey, I know, but I still want to do it. And then right after it's done, you're just like, what have I just done? you know because I think that
Right.
really, and I think that the guilt is not necessarily a bad thing, because I think it shows that you do have a conscience, that you're actually thinking about it,
Hmm.
and you're thinking
Yeah.
about that you want to live a life differently, you want to behave differently, both, and you want your public life and your private life to be more connected, to where you're less divided, right?
Yeah.
You're more of a whole person. And I think that's what I've found in my life. And I think hearing your story, like what we're going through right now, is it creates that sense of division and conflict. It makes things really complicated, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. You got to kind of juggle, you know, what you know about you versus what you want other people to know about you. And
Yeah,
it's exhausting.
it
It takes
is.
a toll. There's a cost to it. And like you're saying, I mean, guilt is good. You should feel guilty. Like you did
Yeah.
do a bad thing. There's a certain amount of guilt that should be felt with that, right? That's like if we didn't have guilt, I mean, there's gosh, I'm trying to think of how Pastor words it, but it's like God's not trying to get you something, he's trying to get you guilty. And what he means by I can't remember what it fully is, but basically he's just trying to, the Holy Spirit applies that pressure, right? You feel that conviction.
Right.
And that's even if you're not saved, even if you're not a Christian, I mean, there's still part of you deep down that knows what you're doing is wrong, right? In the Bible, it says that his words written onto our heart. And so we know we all have a concept. I mean, wherever you're born, wherever you're from, whatever you're brought up, and you understand that there is a right and wrong. Now, as you grow up, you obviously get influenced as to what you think is right and what you think is wrong and all that. But the point is, sorry, circling back,
Yeah.
like you're saying with shining the light and being honest, my mom called me something the other day, something that came out of my addiction and through my victory. Something that she called me was I have compulsive honesty. I
Hey, there you
tend
go.
to, I mean, some people call it oversharing, but I mean,
Sure,
it's
sure.
fine. But I mean, I'm kind of joking, but kind of not when I'm
Yeah.
saying like the whole oversharing. It's like, so what? I've got nothing to hide anymore, and it's fantastic. There is absolutely like I don't have a single secret with anybody, and it's so liberating. It's so freeing. It's so just like there is no weight, there's no juggling, there's no balance, there's no like it's just I don't even know how to describe it other than I feel like I've been walking through my life with cannonballs strapped to my feet and somebody just cut the rope and now I can move freely because
Oh,
I'm
great.
not worried about who's thinking what of me or oh man, what if they know? What if they can see right through me? Instead, you're just like, here I am. This is what I
Right.
got.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
this is me. And then when people don't run like you think they would, when you're in the addiction and you think if I came out with this, then everybody's going to run and I'm going to be alone, right? Because that's a big part
Huge.
of being a porn addict is you think you're alone. And you're
Yeah.
not. You're not.
Right.
It's great.
Right.
Once you come out with everything and you see that people will still be around you, people still love you, people still care about you, Christ still loves you, Christ still cares about you. You're like, "Oh, well, I was expecting you all to leave, but you're still here. Okay. Well, let me take one more step forward. Okay. Nobody else is gone. All right. Let me take one more step forward." And that's just what it is, man.
Oh, amen. I love that. That's really good. Because I think that encapsulates a lot of it, the weight and then the freeing, right? Because when you live a life where it's transparent and you're not divided, and like us all, man, like we have maturity, that we still things that we learn, that we're trying to do, that we're struggling with, a part of being human, right? But when you don't have that secret life anymore, it allows you, I think, to step into those things with a lot more clarity. I think a lot more like confidence, I think,
Hmm. Oh yeah.
and just like the ability, I think, to have conversations with people, be a light for others.
Hmm.
I think it makes you a lot more empathetic too,
It
to people
does.
that struggle with it. Because I think before, right, when you feel like you're alone, it's almost like you want to castigate the people that are going through the same thing, because you're like, oh, I would never do that, or whatever. But at
Yeah.
the same time, you're doing it the next day or whatever,
Yeah.
and it just makes you feel gross inside, right? Like, it just makes
Mhm.
you feel like, what kind of man am I if
Right.
I'm calling out all these other people, or I'm acting like, because I think that's a lot that I get sometimes from people, is when I get like a lot of big pushback or name calling or whatever, I'm kind of like, where's this coming from? Because I think a lot of people that go through recovery and they get victory, there's a lot more empathy there, and there's a lot more of an open hand to people,
Hmm.
and a lot more understanding. Because I
Yep.
mean, gosh, man, I'd love to say you were the first person on my podcast to say that you were thinking about taking your own life, but I mean,
It's
it's pretty
common.
much every person, every guy pretty much on this podcast that I've interviewed has had that story. And
Yeah.
I have that story, and it's sad to hear that, but it's also important to share it, right?
Hmm.
Because I think that culturally we have not really thought deeply about how isolating this can be for people. And I think that's where those thoughts start to creep in, is when
Hmm.
you feel like that deep sense of shame. I
Yep.
think guilt too,
Yes.
but the shame really takes over, and I like to call it the shackles of shame,
Yeah. That's
to
what it
where
is.
it just overwhelms you, to where if and I think with porn, right, as a Christian, it severs that relationship with God, with the action that we take. It's a severing, to where we're making a conscious choice, to where we're saying, hey, I'd rather do this. And I think with recovery, right, as Christians, I mean, when we have relapses, it's important just to get back into the truth as soon as possible. I know my mentor Vern Tomke does the Finding Traction podcast, and I think he's talked to the Pure Desire guys before on his podcast. But he always just says, like, just come to the fire, come close to the fire. That fire out in the wilderness, like, come seek it. If you lose your way, you're out in the cold, just come back,
Hmm.
because there's forgiveness there, there's grace there. But right in the story that and we'll circle back to, after you had that conversation with your pastor, but I think it's important just to emphasize that, is, we can get to this really dark spot, to where, like you were saying, when it's so isolating. And I was at that point too, where I was like, I'd rather just take this to the grave. Like, I'm so ashamed. I'm just living in shame. I'd rather just not go on, because I just, and again, that's where God found me too, was when I was going to call the hotline.
Yeah.
And I remember that to this day as a game changer, life changing moment. But I just think it's so important to know that you're not alone. Like, you're
Hmm.
never alone, ever. And that thought in your mind will change everything if you pursue it.
Right. And there's a big part of it where you have people tell you all the time, and I think it especially stuck out to me when when I was fighting the addiction. People would tell me, because I'd share like other stuff that I had going on, and I'd share it with other people, and they'd be like, "Oh, well, I'm here for you if you need anything." It's like nobody really means that. Like, I shouldn't
Yeah.
say nobody, but very few people actually mean that.
Unless they dig a
Like,
little bit deeper and they start,
right? Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's just most people say that as a way to make themselves feel better. And it's like, oh, hey, well, I tried, I offered, and if they don't cash in, that's that's on them. And then you secretly kind of hope that they don't cash in. Like, that's what a lot of people do. I've done that. Absolutely, I've done that.
Sure, sure.
And it's so when you're an addict, and because you yourself, or not you specifically, but as an addict, you are a liar. You've become like a professional liar, and so then you start not trusting other people because it's like, oh well, it's easy for me to lie about this. Why don't I mean everybody's probably lying about something,
Right.
and it's so it okay. I don't remember the entire skit, but do you know the comedian Dane Cook?
Yep.
He's got that whole bit on cheating, and it's so accurate. Like he goes into like this whole thing where because you're paranoid and you're worried about getting caught, you start getting paranoid of other people around you, and you start suspecting, your partner of cheating or whatever, and you start like turning that because you don't want to look inward, you start reflecting that outward, and you start projecting, and you start, having just that paranoia of, everybody's doing something, everybody's hiding something from you, and
Right, right,
you start
right,
getting defensive.
right. And then that can also justify your actions because you're like, well, if
Yeah.
other people are hiding things, like what's wrong with me doing that?
Hmm.
Ugh,
Absolutely.
nasty cycle. Okay. So woo. But yeah, circling back, right? So you have this conversation with your pastor and this beautiful moment, I think, of just your mom coming in and just giving you some really good, straightforward,
Yeah.
hey, that there's a problem and I got someone that can help. Uh, yeah, talk us through that a little bit. So you have this conversation, right? He talks about these truths that you agreed to. That you say, yeah, I do
Hmm.
believe in that. So I think that's important. What did it look like after that?
Well, I started trying to win my marriage back. I
Okay,
started trying to do the work and really try to, win her back. However, she had already, had her mind set on divorce,
sure.
and which, I mean, I get it. I
Yeah,
understand. I'm
yeah,
not saying she was wrong to do it.
yeah,
I
right.
mean, that is what it is. And, we were going to counseling. She had her like chaplain from her fire department talk to us, and I mean, that's a separate story. He wasn't very helpful. But
Sure.
anyway, but kind of I was trying to do the work, and I remember too, like we had arguments and like screaming matches, and like we were constantly yelling at each other and constantly belittling each other and breaking each other down, and just it was not becoming of either of us. And then I remember our first argument after I had gotten saved, after I had the Holy Spirit, and I just saw her in a different lens.
Mm,
I saw her as, she is hurting just as bad, if not worse than I am. And
right.
she's not saved. I mean, she grew up Catholic. And so in her mind, she has to earn her way into heaven. She has to do all these things. She has to be perfect. She has to, make sure she's doing all this stuff. That's so much pressure to have on somebody. That's a lot of pressure. She's under a lot of pressure. And I remember looking at her just in a different light. And I had a different response for her. And I remember I was responding to her with kindness. I was responding to her with grace. That's the big part, right? Grace is undeserved favor is what grace is. And so, you know, I remember her looking at me like, why
Who
are
is this
you
guy?
talking to me like this? I don't have any kind of counter for that. You need to stop talking to me like this. I can't counter that. And I'm like thinking in my head, there's that little whisper of pride that I was like, yeah, I know you can't respond to that. But then obviously the majority of me is like, this, okay, I can do this. This is what being a Christian is like. This is a lot easier. This is nice, And while that divorce was probably the top three hardest things I've ever had to go through in my entire life,
Sure.
at the very back of my mind, it no longer felt like just an empty pit that everything would fall into. It was a solid, sure foundation
Right.
that was God, that was Christ. Like every step of the way, it was like no matter what, when I like mentally turn around, he was there and he's like, it's all right, just one more step. Keep going
Mm,
forward. And one thing that my mom told me too, it was just put your head down, do the next right thing and tell the truth.
mm,
And man, that just do the next right thing and tell the truth. Do the next right thing and tell the truth. Like I would say that to myself over and over and over again. And then during that time, during that very turbulent period in my life, you know, um, my ex-wife, I mean, I had gone to her dad and I was like, hey, I have this problem, man. I need help. I need, I don't even know what I need, but I need help. I'm just coming out. I started telling everybody. I started telling
Yeah.
everybody I was an addict. And at one point, my ex-wife and myself and her parents all sat down at the table at the table at her parents' place, and it was like they were supposed to be, I guess, mediators or something. But basically, they just kind of sat there, and my ex-wife just kind of laid into me, and
Mm.
she had said uh, two of the most hurtful things I've ever been told in my entire life, and that it absolutely gutted me. But she
Mm.
had looked me dead in the eye and was like, "What you did to me was worse than being sexually assaulted," and
Mm.
basically saying I'm worse than a rapist, and
Mm.
that cut me to my core, to my
Mm.
absolute core. Like, it was, I can't even begin to explain what that did to me, what that did to my identity, what that did to my emotions, my mental state.
Sure.
And then, she had another time said that, like, it physically pains me to watch you think.
Mm.
And it was like, what? Who says that? That's insane. Like, I can kind of laugh at it now because it's just such a crazy thing to say to somebody. But at the time, I was like, I don't even have words for it. But it was like right when she said that, the it had to have been God, because at that point Alex had left the building. Like, Alex was, I wasn't there. I was just a hollow husk of any fraction of a man I might have been. Like,
Sure.
Alex wasn't there. And she said that to me, and I immediately was like, no, you don't get to talk to me like that. You're not going to talk to me like that. And then, she tried to gaslight me and was like, well, I'm just trying to explain to you how I'm feeling. I'm not allowed to show you my emotions. And I was like, you can. There's like a billion words in the English language. You can pick any of them other than those to explain how you're feeling. And it was very much like I had, um, that wasn't a very productive conversation, but eventually, I ended up going back to my friend's place, who I was staying with his parents at the time, and they had gotten me through a lot. They had got me
Mm.
through that, pretty much that whole thing, up until I moved out to here, out to Montana. And it was funny because they're actually they're Jehovah's Witnesses, and so they were trying to also kind of preach to me their version of the gospel. And so that was also kind of interesting. But they were, man, I'll tell you what, they are the nicest, sweetest people, and they played such a crucial role in where I was at in that. And God had put them in my life, I believe, not for that reason specifically, but I think, the fact that I'm still best friends with their kid today, like, we were best friends since they
Yeah.
moved from England. Like, me and my buddy, we're still to this day best friends. And I didn't really talk to his parents all that much, but I remember calling his dad and saying, like, hey man, like, I do you mind if I just crash at your place for a night? My wife and I are just kind of figuring some stuff out.
Yeah.
Little did I know that it was going to be for a week,
Wow.
and she had already filed divorce papers at the time.
Wow.
And we all met at a Starbucks, and her mom blindsided me and hit me with the "you have been served" and all that. It was just like this whole thing. And I remember after that just going back to their house and just kind of like sitting there, like, just shell shocked.
Yeah.
Just,
Right.
what do I even, holy cow, how do I even move forward from this? And again, at the back of my mind, it was just God just saying, dude, just do the next right thing, tell the truth, one step at a time. I got you. And it was just that over and over and over again in the back of my mind. And so it was like, I kept telling people the truth. People kept asking questions, and I just kept telling them. And every single time I told the truth and I was honest about it, and every time somebody stayed, I was like, oh, okay, well, all right, maybe I can do this. All right,
Yeah.
here we go.
Right.
Let's keep going forward. And eventually, I think it was Christmas Day or Christmas Eve that I came out. I came out here with my suitcase, and that's it. I had a storage unit with all my stuff in Washington, but I just came out here with a suitcase, and I didn't have a job for like 3 months because I was just like, I'm of no good to anybody right now. I'm completely just void of anything. I've got nothing to give. I'm just so empty. And then it was cool though, because looking back on it, you kind of see God's direction and God's providence in a lot of things that happen in hindsight. And there's a lot of things, a lot of projects that needed to get done on the farm. And so
Mm.
it allowed me to kind of be by myself, process while I was also trying to work on something. And like it helped me build my confidence. It helped me find my identity again and find, who I was as a man and as Alex. And it helped me figure out who Alex was outside of my ex-wife and outside of the addiction and outside. It really was just a fresh start. And it was so insanely cold when I moved out here. And I think church was shut down for, I think, like a couple Sundays. And like they had a young adults thing at the time that also got canceled. So I was in solitude and not isolation, but it was like, I would talk with my parents about a few things. And, you know, my mom being the trauma counselor would help me process stuff and kind of give me some direction on, I have this just pile of emotion. What do I do with it?
Mm.
And she'd be like, oh, okay, we'll just do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, oh, okay. So then while I'm out like building a woodshed or, using a chainsaw or whatever, just processing and going through that exercise over and over and over again.
Was this at
Uh,
your parents' farm?
yep, 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 yep.
Cool. Cool.
And so it was just this whole process of rebuilding who I was,
Mm.
but having a new identity anchored in Christ,
Mm.
which is my foundation now, which is also now what fuels me in so many different aspects of my life. Like, with this Spartan race, I mean, sorry to keep going back to it, but it actually was a super big thing. Like it taught me a lot, but like with this Spartan race, there was this, the first obstacle that my wife was able to see me do, I couldn't do it. And that crushed me. That absolutely crushed me. And it was the rope climbing. All it was is just climbing straight up a rope, tagging a
Yeah.
belt, and then sliding back
Super
down.
simple.
Yeah, you would think, right? That rope is way too slippery, and I'm way too heavy for that rope. And we've been going to the gym and working out. I've been working on, doing like rope exercises and all that, training my grip strength and all that. But I just couldn't do it. I couldn't get the footwork down. I couldn't get the technique down. I didn't have the strength, and I just couldn't do it. And immediately my brain started going to what it knows, and it just started breaking me down and feeling shame. And it was like, you're a
Mm.
POS. You can't do this. You couldn't even climb the rope. This is one of the first obstacles, and blah, 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 blah. Like just repeating the cycle. But this time, before it got out of hand, in the back of my mind, it was like, no, God still loves me. Christ is still on the
Mm.
throne. We're doing just fine. It's just a race. It's okay. Christ already knew I was going to fail that obstacle when he died for me. It's not that deep. It's okay. And I just kept on going. Like it breaks the cycle. That's what it is, right? You have this path that your brain follows when certain triggers happen. And so then you're able to catch yourself and say, wait, nope, hold on. We're going to divert course and we're going to go that way instead.
Mm.
And it's a mental decision that it's a very conscious decision that you have to make.
Right. Yeah. And I think my therapist at one point told me too, it's like we're almost like battling against our subconscious that
Oh, yeah.
is trained over the years, right? Because we talk about, 10 years old was pretty much the same time I was exposed to it. And my recovery really started about 8 years ago, and I'm 34. That's like when recovery, like when I started to look at things differently, right? But you have to take into account that for a majority of your life, this has been playing a role with how your subconscious responds to certain triggers, like
Mm-hmm.
you're saying. And so it's not like it won't come up, like where you're gonna have these feelings or these responses that your subconscious is like, hey, go here, or like, hey, you're a terrible person, or like, how could you even like think that thought, or hey, you just failed
Mm-hmm.
at this rope thing. But like you said, when you have an identity that's rebuilt, and it's rebuilt around Christ, where you know the truth, and the truth is that you're loved and that you're saved,
Yeah.
then it becomes a whole lot different of a conversation that you're having with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And you
Yeah.
were saying
100%.
too, so you remarried,
Mm-hmm.
which is amazing. So I
Yeah.
think that's great. So You move back to Montana, you're rebuilding your life. And I know too, like I'm, uh, got back on the dating scene, all that stuff, and I want to get remarried as well. How was that? I think just going through, because I think when you're talking about your divorce and I think about mine, yeah, it's really hard, and it's hard too when you understand that your relationship with porn did play a big role in it, in the feelings and the hurt and the pain, because yeah, that stuff, it makes things complicated. What for you really helped with just getting that confidence to go back and pursue love?
Okay, so it was really funny. And I'm actually kind of happy you brought it up because it is a funny story. So basically, my mom is like the queen of too soon. And because that's just how I grew up, I find it funny. And to me, like whenever we have some kind of argument or like we butt heads about something, as soon as we're over it, we'll start making fun of each other for it.
Hmm.
Even if like other people would be like, yo, that just happened like an hour ago. We can't be joking about that. Like
Right.
we're already on it. So leave it to my mom to be like in the first like few days or like first week or whatever when I came out here, she's like, "Hey, I know it's not right now, but whenever you're ready, there's a gal at church that you're gonna love." I'm like, "Mom, no, I want nothing to do
Oh my
with
gosh, that's funny.
anything of that variety right now. I
We
want
gotta
to
get
be
you a
so
girl.
far away from that." Like it was so freaking funny, dude.
That's great.
And so and so we're going to church, right? And the crazy thing is, too, she sat right in front of us at church every Sunday for months. And I had no idea who she was, never noticed her, never like, no idea. It just wasn't even on my radar. I wasn't even on her radar. And then one day she goes up to my dad, and she's a very, well, she used to be a very quiet and shy, like just kind of, I don't know if timid is the right word,
Yeah,
but
like
just
reserved.
very, yeah, reserved is a better word. Yeah, thank you. But she goes up to my dad and she's like, "Is that your son?" And then he's like, "Yes." And she's like, "Okay." And then just walked away.
That's funny.
Well, there's like no conversation. I still just never knew who she was. Apparently, we would pass each other in the hall all the time, just never noticed.
Okay.
And then one day, what is it? One day, my mom calls me. I had just gotten home from work and I was kind of winding down. And we had also, it's all connected, I promise. We'd also just had baby goats. And so my mom calls me and she's just like, "Oh my gosh, Alex, I promise you, I'm not trying to set you guys up, but I'll just say your name. Jordan is on her way to the farm right now to go look at baby goats. I meant to be there, but we're stuck in Missoula traffic and we're not going to be there."
Oh,
And I was
smooth,
like,
smooth
"There's
move.
no way you're not setting this up." She's like, "No, I swear, I give you my word, we're not trying to set you guys up."
God's providence, we'll call it
Yep, that's
that.
exactly it, dude. That's exactly it. And at the time, I still didn't think I was ready. I was still like, "All
Sure.
right, whatever, dude. I'll just go meet her. Whatever. It's not a big deal." I go out there and she's out there holding a baby goat, and like I don't know how squeamish you are, but like the mama goat just had the baby,
Oh,
like
so that
just
thing
had
was
the
that thing
baby.
was all sticky and
It was all gross. It was
gross.
gross. I'm not about that life at all. It was nasty. Like it smelled awful. And so I go in there into like this like tiny little like kidding pen. It's all like enclosed and all that. So the smells are not going anywhere. And so we just walk in. I'm like, "Hey, I'm Alex." She's like, "Hey, I'm Jordan." And then we just hit it off. It was just we just clicked, and it was really cool. And I remember, after we had gotten done with the baby goats, we went up to the driveway and we were just kind of hanging out. Like we were awkward. We were both very awkward, but we both wanted to be there. We both wanted to keep talking to each other. We were just both, neither of us had any game, as the kids would say. And so
You
it
had the
was
goat
like,
game.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I asked her, I was like, "Well, hey, I'm not trying to keep you if you got somewhere to be." And she just looked at her. She's like, "I got nowhere to be." And I was like, "Oh."
Hey,
I was like, "Okay,
nice.
that's cool with me." And eventually we just hit it off, man. And one thing led to another, and then we made some mistakes along the way, but
Sure.
there's a lot of challenges that we had to overcome. But we were both focused on growing our relationship with Christ. And when we got married, we vowed to keep pushing each other towards Christ. And, when we were
Mm.
doing our premarital counseling, one thing that Shane would tell us is like, it's like a triangle, right? If you're both moving towards Christ, you're both going to draw closer together just by naturally. Like it's
Oh
just
yeah, I
how
like
that's
that.
going to be.
That's a good way of putting it right there.
And so, we overcame a lot, and it was kind of crazy because I mean, I don't even know how long I was out here before we started talking, but like on paper, way too soon.
Sure.
Like on paper, way too soon. And then, but it just, I would pray about it, and I would ask for wisdom. I would seek counsel. I would seek advice from people I trusted, from the people that had just gotten me out of this crap that I was in. And, eventually I made the decision, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to marry her. That's going to happen. We're going to get married. And it was just, I don't know, man. It's just kind of funny looking back how it all worked out, how it all lined up, how it all just worked together. I mean, how does the Bible verse go where it's like all things work? No, it's not all things work together for those who love God. It's not that, because my wife makes fun of me when I misquote it like that. But I don't know. It's basically something. If you're pursuing God, like God will honor that, and good things will happen, essentially.
Yeah, I'll
But
see if I can pull up a quote. Let's see. Romans 8:28. Let's see if this one works here. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose.
that is literally the exact verse I was thinking of. Yes.
No, but
Thank
I
you, sir.
mean, man, that's so true though, because I feel like that really resonates with me in my life too. In the moments where I've pursued God and I've pursued
Mm-hmm.
that relation with Christ, really good things happen. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean, oh, I've won the lottery, I'm a
Oh God, no.
billionaire.
No, no,
No,
no, no,
it's
no.
like good things happen for the plan that God has you on
Mm-hmm.
to where you're in one with your soul and you're in one with this divine purpose
Mm-hmm.
to where you'll know it when you're in it. And like you're talking about with your wife now, you just knew. And I think that's an interesting thing too. And there's a lot of, I think, things I relate to in your story with going through the divorce. But I think that's also something when you go through that, at least, I think for both of us, I could probably say this, but I think when you're on the other side of it and it's done and you still want to get married, you still want to have that person in your life. When
Mm-hmm.
you go through a divorce and you have that perspective and you have that compass going towards God, you have that hope. And it's almost like you have a better understanding of like, okay, like this is what marriage really means.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what unity really means. Because I didn't necessarily have that on the altar per se, because I think I had some sobriety going into my marriage.
Mm-hmm.
But again, man, it wasn't like anything that was that
Yeah.
strong. It was that little bit of that bump that you get, I think, when you're in that honeymoon stage,
Right.
that
Yep. Yep.
wears off, I think, when life kind of comes back and the stresses
Yeah.
start to pop up, right?
Yep.
I think people talk about that a lot in the recovery space too. I think that's one of the lies that we tell ourselves often is like, hey, when I get married, I'll be able to have sex with my wife all the time. I won't even be
Yeah.
thinking about porn. But I think porn's really not as sexual as people think it is. I think it's more mental and
Yeah.
it's more emotional than I
There's a
think.
root injury and a root wound that
Yeah,
it directly addresses.
exactly. Right. So, but when you have that concept in your mind that, oh, it's just about sex, it's just about being horny, it's going to set you up for failure
Yep.
because there's something deeper there that you have to dig in. So, yeah. And, I was able to date this really great girl. The relationship didn't end up, going all the way. We broke up last summer, but that was like the first porn free relationship I ever had in my life.
Yeah.
And it was insane. Like it was insanely good in the fact
Mm-hmm.
that yeah, I was able to talk. I think it was like our fourth date, this kind of the question came up, and I'm sure you got this question too, is like, hey, like why did you get divorced?
Yeah.
And being able to talk through that and
Mm-hmm.
really just say, hey, this is like why. And again, it's not like it's just all me. There's
Mm-hmm.
things on the other side as well, but you can take responsibility for it and say, yeah, like
Yep.
this is a big part of it, my
Yep.
responsibility. But I think when you're in that recovery mind state, the victory mind state, like you're talking about, you're able to just talk about it honestly and be able to talk about it in a way to where you're not gaslighting, you're not justifying, you're not minimizing, you're not avoiding. Like any
Mhm.
time that I'm asked about it, I can talk about it, and
Yeah.
I don't have to hold any punches back because hey, look where we're at now, right?
Hmm.
And we're not here today talking because we just are white knuckling it and we're alone. We're here
Yeah.
today talking because there's brotherhood, there's a relationship with Christ, there's community, there's connection, there's purpose, all those good things. But I'm sure that helped you out too, right? With probably your
Yeah.
confidence and your ability to be honest with your future, with your now wife, but
Yeah.
back when you were dating, probably of having that conversation, right?
Yeah. It was, it was, I want to write down pure desire because I have a connection to that really quick. But
Yeah.
it was, it was cool in a way, but like you're saying, yes, it did. I did have the confidence going into dating her because I was like, dude, I've just at the time and in my own personal experience, I've just gone through hell
Yeah.
and I'm
Right.
still here. I'm still breathing. I'm still moving forward. I've actively taken steps to heal. I'm actively pursuing growth in my relationship with those around me. I'm trying to better my relationship with my parents, with my girlfriend, with God, with my pastor, with like just everybody. I'm trying to just work at being better, and not because I suck, but because there's there's room for improvement. Right? I've definitely not arrived, which would imply that there's still a better version of me out. So I'm gonna do what I can to pursue that. And my in-laws, they kind of just grilled me. They just interviewed me, and it was like, I mean, on one hand, I get it, but on the other hand, like, just talk to me and just get to know me, like in
Sure.
a normal setting.
Sure.
But they had asked me, and it kind of caught me off guard. But I was also, because I was being honest and that compulsive honesty, I was ready for it. They were like, "Do you have any addictions?" And I was like, "Huh, that's a pretty direct question, but you know what? No, I don't. I'm currently experiencing victory over a porn addiction. I am this many months sober or whatever it was at the time, and or this many years. I don't know how long it was, but they were like, "Oh, okay, understood," and they seemed very understanding of it, which was awesome. I mean, I think they hold it against me to this day, but it's fine. Who's counting?
Yeah, well, it's kind of
But
interesting, right?
no, it was good though. It was good, and
Yeah, I was gonna say it's interesting too because I think that older generations don't really have a good conceptualization about it most of the time. And I think that plays a role probably into in a way, when I was 10 years old and I first was exposed to it. I mean, that was around the time the internet was coming around. I'm a dinosaur, but I still remember being in a house where we didn't even have internet, and then all of a sudden it was like this connection was like ring, bang, grr, grr, all this stuff, right? And so
yep.
it's like the world that my parents grew up in was different than the world I grew up in, and
Hmm.
I think that I'm typically, and I'm sure you are too, used to it sometimes where people might respond a certain way and or they might take it out on us or whatever. But in the back of my mind, I always just know the statistics, and it's a really high percentage of people watch it on a daily
Yeah.
basis. And I'm
Not
just
just
like,
men either.
yeah, not just men. So and even I know my pastor brought this up. They've been doing a really good job about talking about pornography, but he was like even like 50% of pastors watch at least like once a month, which is
Yeah.
crazy. And I say crazy just because it's like, wow, like I wish it was different. But
Hmm.
it's not shocking, right?
Right.
But so that's a great point to bring up though, right? Because I think when we are going through recovery, for everyone listening, there's going to be those points where yeah, you might be questioned, you might be grilled, people might have a certain thought about you, but ultimately it just comes down to, like you said, I love it, is do the next best thing, tell the truth. Like that's the best you can do, right? And ultimately, I think like when you're living into yourself in a whole life in a connection union with Christ and having that purpose, I think whenever that happens to me, it doesn't really set me back at all. I think
Mhm.
I think initially those talks would sometimes make me feel like, geez, like, can I just get a break here or whatever?
Yeah.
But then you just have to realize, hey, like I'm doing my thing and this is going to have great benefits for my life and for
Mhm.
the people around me, right?
Yep.
Because man, we both lived through it, right? Like we both lived through a destruction of a relationship, of those people that were in it, going from one place, right, when you're talking about on the altar, you're celebrating a union, and then sitting at the table and just having this conversation where you just go out of body, where it's just like, wow, is this happening? And
Yep.
I definitely had a lot of those moments too, man, where I'm like, is this real life? Like, I can't believe this is happening right now. But like you said, I love it. I love it, love it, love it. It's just do the next best thing and tell the truth.
Dude, that has gotten me
So
through
good.
so much. Since
So good.
then, even like I still go back to it. I still, when I'm feeling super duper overwhelmed and I'm super duper just like, just take a deep breath, do the next right thing, tell the truth.
Hmm.
And it's something that, I, have you heard of Jocko Willink?
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
mean,
So,
when I started my recovery, man, I went up to my
yep.
grandparents' cabin and brought up Discipline Equals Freedom with me
Yep. Yep.
and read that thing like crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. He's got a lot of good stuff, which
Yeah.
I don't know if he's necessarily trying to. He doesn't really talk about faith all that much, but just about everything he teaches is biblical.
Right.
About the kind of leadership, the kind of accountability, the kind of ownership, taking responsibility for that stuff like that. It's all biblical. It's all sound doctrine that Christ has already laid out.
Hmm.
But also, I mean, if you're for anybody listening that's not a believer, I mean, I definitely encourage you to check out, Extreme Ownership, Discipline Equals Freedom, the dichotomy of leadership.
Great books.
I'm currently reading The Need to Lead by, I think, something Burke. I'm forgetting what his first name is, but he's a fighter pilot and a friend of Jocko's too. But you talked about just taking ownership a while back, and
Dave Burke.
Dave Burke. Yep, yep, yep. And what do the next right thing and tell the truth in Jocko's words is prioritize and execute.
Hmm.
That's how he words that essentially is like, okay, take a step back, prioritize, and then execute towards that priority. And so it's easy to get overwhelmed, it's easy to get bogged down, it's easy to like, oh my gosh, I can never do this, I can never overcome this, I can never find freedom, I can never blah 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 blah. But it's like, okay, well, take a deep breath, tell the truth. This guy's gonna ask you a question. Okay, just tell the truth. Super easy, you know, because it does get a lot easier the more you tell the truth.
Yeah.
The more you start airing your stuff out. Now, I'm not saying trauma dump on people because
Yeah.
that's
Right.
also a thing, right?
Yeah.
But there is a way to just be like, hey, yeah, you know what? I've struggled with porn for this many years. I'm trying to seek help. This is what I'm trying to do to get help. These are the steps that I'm taking. It's not easy. I'm really struggling. I'm really, hurting in these areas, but this is what I'm doing to overcome it. And what Pure Desire talks about too is finding the why essentially, right? Figuring out
Right. Yeah.
why do you gravitate towards porn? Why did your brain start attaching to that, right? Like there's science to prove that uh, the kind of porn you watch is a direct link to a kind of trauma that you experienced or currently experience in your
Hmm.
early childhood.
Hmm.
So, like, I'm going to be very careful how I word it, but basically, to somebody that has a very controlling mother might watch something that would put a mother in a more submissive role, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Yeah. And I don't know if you ever listened to Porn Free Radio with Matt Dobshoots. Really, I mean, that was like that was what started my recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, call him one of the OGs. in the recovery space.
Yeah, yeah,
He's talked to Pure Desire too, because they're phenomenal.
they're
Definitely
great.
check
Yeah,
out their podcast. But he's doing a part one and part two on shame right now, his most recent
mm,
episodes. And
yeah,
he was talking because the first episode's really like he had this great quote about something about fish and water, and then like ask like one fish talks to the other and they're like, what's water? And it's like, how do you even know like what water is if you're a fish and that's like
yeah.
what you're swimming in? And that's how he was talking about shame in a way of understanding. How do you even know that shame has such a control over you if you haven't even like stepped outside to really look at that and examine it? And then the second part of it, he's really talking through like how to heal, and that's what I'm actually listening to today, yesterday, and today I've been listening to it. But there was something that struck me, and you're talking about it too. Was he was talking about one of his biggest things of like why he'd go to porn was feeling like he was unlovable.
Yeah, yeah,
And he said that there is like a certain, porn star, whatever, that he was attracted to that was, it was something about her eyes and the way she looked at the camera. And you felt like you were like seen.
yeah.
And it really struck me because, yeah, like there's things that come from porn that I think we're seeking, but it's just the mechanism it's coming to us, it's addictive and it's not healthy and
Yeah.
it's isolating us. But there's something there I think that we're seeking out, right? Like we're seeking out validation, or we're
Hmm.
seeking out having that feeling of control. I think that's another thing with porn too, right? Is you feel like you're in
Yep.
control, you feel like you're
Yep.
being seen, someone's doing something for you, like someone wants you to feel pleasure.
Hmm.
And I think the interesting thing too is like when you're in that isolated state, and I think what both of us can relate to with those past relationships in the marriage was, you know hey, we did something to hurt the person that we're with. It's going to be a little bit more difficult for us to get that sense of feeling like we're wanted, or feeling
Hmm.
like we're in control, or feeling like loved or valued,
Hmm.
or that we're wanted, right?
Yeah.
Because yeah, there's that valid feeling of betrayal to where, yeah, I don't really want to seek you out sexually because I feel hurt by you,
Hmm.
which is valid, right? But it's something that needs to be worked through and healed, I think, through God,
Hmm.
through faith. But right at the same time, I think that's what can make porn's hooks that much deeper and more alluring. Like the lures of it is, hey, like dangling there, I've got your validation. I've
Hmm.
got that sense of control. Like I'm gonna see you, and hey,
Yeah.
you don't have to do anything. You just got to click. Like you don't have to do any work. It's already laid out for you.
Mm.
And that can be so alluring, I think, especially when you're in a deep pit of despair.
Yeah.
You feel pain, you're isolated, and you don't have that relationship with God, that higher power. Yeah, man, like I get it because we both lived through it, man.
Yeah. I like your analogy of the fish because I wrote down it takes someone who's not in it to point it out to you.
Yeah.
And because you get desensitized to all these things, you get desensitized to what sex is about. I can't explain it fully because I'm still trying to explore the concept, but something that I heard in the Pure Desire podcast, is this guy would, he was recovering from addiction, and so while he was really recovering, his when he went to try to initiate something, his wife would ask him, like, are you seeking sex or are you seeking intimacy?
Hmm.
And with porn, if you're in porn, there's no such thing as intimacy. It's just sex.
Hmm.
Sex is now only about an orgasm, not even for the other person, but for you.
Right.
And you're not seeking a deeper connection with an individual. You're not seeking intimacy. You're just seeking sex.
Hmm.
And when it's like when that's normal, you don't know any different. You don't know that there is a different. And so it's kind of like, translate it to like physical abuse, right? You take a gal who's getting beat up by her husband, and she's making all these kind of excuses, all these justifications, like, oh, he just gets like that sometimes. Oh, he's really nice. Oh, he's really sweet. Oh, that's just how he gets sometimes.
Hmm.
But, somebody who's outside of that is like, no, 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 that's not normal. You got to get out of there. You got to stop that. You have to, do X, Y, and Z and get out of that. Um, it's one of the reasons why I think Pure Desire puts a big emphasis on groups, and call one of the biggest things that one of the actually on I hate to say it, even though I'm leading the group, one of the hardest things to do, even for me, is you have to make 3 calls every week to somebody in
Hmm.
your group. To
Hmm.
like 3 different people in your group. And not like if you and I were in the same group and you called me, that's 1 call for you, but that's not 1 call for me.
Oh, so you got to be like outbound.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
that
So
makes
I
sense.
have to call. I can't like be called and have that count. So if you think about it, you're talking to each other all week. And so you're constantly, together just about as best as you can. And that really makes it a lot easier when you're struggling, when that 9 p.m., 10 p.m., when that hits, and you're just laying there in bed and you're like, well, I mean, I could, then you're like, oh, but you know what I could do? I could call Alex, or, I could call this guy or that guy or whatever. And then, you guys just talk and you just BS, you shoot the breeze until the moment's gone.
Yeah.
And you talk about what you're struggling with, like, hey, today was a really hard day. I screwed up at this job. I cut this measurement wrong, and I feel like a failure. And then you talk with your buddy. He's like, oh man, yeah, I did that before too. It really sucked, but this is what I did to get through it. What can I pray for you on? Like, what can I help you with? How can I
Yeah.
best support you? What do you need from me right now? And you realize that you're not alone, you're not by yourself, you're not isolated, you have a brotherhood, you have a team to get you through something.
Yeah,
you
and there's
know
accountability too.
that's huge, and that's the biggest thing too, is accountability, right? Because like it's so difficult and so hard after you've just relapsed to admit it the first time that you relapsed. It's so difficult.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because for me, that's part of my motivation for not wanting to relapse, because I don't want to do that again. That sucked. That was hard.
Hey,
I
man,
have no desire to do that again.
I don't want to write about it. I don't want to podcast about it for me. Like I have let's see, I think it's episode 51 and then episode I think it's 9 are the relapse episodes. And that was
Yeah.
hard for me, man. Like I was
Yeah.
like, crap, now I've got to write about it. I have to explain it.
Hmm.
But also I was like, I need to model this for other people to where
Right.
if I can publicly talk about my relapse and hopefully I can open the door for other people. But dude,
Hmm.
that's a huge one, right? Is like I don't want to be that guy on group. I do group every Thursday with
Hmm.
Vern Tomke's Finding Traction group, and really cool. We're actually going to be meeting. We met last year in Reno. We're going to meet
Oh,
this year
cool.
in yeah, kind of San Luis Obispo area in California.
Okay.
But just starting to meet each other in person is really cool. But yeah, like for me, I don't want to be that guy. Like I want to be honest about everything, but like that's works in the back of my mind where yeah, I don't want to be that guy where I'm just like, hey man, I relapse again like every week. Every week,
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
and it happens and I feel for those
Yeah.
people. There's people in group that happens with sometimes and you
Hmm.
feel for them and you pray for them and you try to help
Yeah.
them. But I think that if you don't have that accountability structure there, then like that's not like you're missing that additional component in your recovery of accountability to where yeah, like I don't like I played sports my whole life. Like I don't want to be that guy if you throw it to me, you just know I'm going to miss like an easy layup or
Yeah. Yeah.
an open three or something. Like
Hmm.
I'm got a good shot of making it. And it is part of being like on a team too where
Hmm.
you're helping each other, you're strengthening each other. I wanted to pull up too while you were talking. I was able to get the quote. So it's David Foster Wallace, and he's like he wrote about I think addiction a lot in American culture. I think he wrote this novel Infinite Jest. But if you don't mind, I can say it really quickly. He said this at like a commencement speech. I think that's what Dob Sheets was talking about on his podcast. But he said, two young salmon are swimming along one day. As they do, they are passed by a wiser, older fish coming the other way. The wiser fish greets the two as he passes, saying, morning, boys, how's the water? The other two continue to swim in silence for a little while until the first one turns the other one and asks, what the hell is water?
I like that.
Yeah.
There's a lot to that.
Yeah, but I mean, and think about that too, man, with recovery. I mean, I think that was something for me, like in my life. I was like, what is this? I think when you're talking to people that are in it, that are the fish swimming in the water, and that's just how life is. That's how we were, I think, for a
Mhm.
while, to where it's just normalized. Like we know it's something that we want to quit and whatever, but we don't know that there's even recovery groups. We don't know that there's resources out there. Like I remember when I really had that rock bottom moment initially, when I was like 6 months into my marriage, when I started my recovery, I just remember like Googling, like, hey, like, how do you quit porn? Or like, are there
Yep.
resources? Is there, cause I love podcasts. I'm like, is there a podcast? And then that's when I found Porn Free Radio. And I think that's when, Matt Dobbs shoots on Porn Free Radio is like, how's the water, Mac? And I'm
Yeah,
like,
yep, yep,
what's
yep.
water?
Yeah.
So it is like an education in a way too, right? When you join in. So I'm assuming that's kind of, was that the main like recovery avenue that you pursued, was pure desire?
Not at first,
Not at
honestly.
first.
At first, I mean, it was I mean, maybe in like a long form kind of way.
Yeah.
Like my mom kind of showed me the Conquer series,
Okay.
which
Yeah, I've
was
had people talk
created by
about
the
that.
same guy that made Pure Desire. I did that for a little bit, and to be honest, I just had a bad experience with one of the groups in it.
Sure, that can happen
But
too, man.
yeah, the guy that was leading it was his first time leading a group,
Oh, sure.
and you know he had said something to me that I wasn't healed up enough to hear, and I think he meant well, and I think I get now what he was trying to say,
Yeah.
but he said it in a way that just cut me deep enough, and I was like, you know what? Nah, I'm not doing
Zero
this
to a
group.
hundred a little too quick.
Yeah, I'm not ready for that, and
Sure.
it was I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt when I say that I think I know
Yeah.
what he's trying to say, but
Yeah.
he did not say the right stuff. But I did that for a little bit, but eventually I started getting kind of crazy with it. I started getting radical with it. And when I say that, I mean like at one point, there was a event at church that was going to happen in like I think 4 hours, and I was just at home by myself. I had nothing but my phone, and I was like, well, I mean, I could. That thought right there has got me in so much trouble every single time. But as soon as I had that thought, I kid you not, dude, I left my phone at home and I just went to church. And
Wow.
I just
That's an unheard of thing in this day and age.
yeah, I literally just I ran. I'm not even exaggerating. I ran to my truck
Hmm.
and I just went to church. I was like, no, 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 no. I can't do it, can't do it. Like I fled from it. As the Bible says, flee from temptation. The Bible tells us to be radical with with our I guess solutions, like in a way. Like, if your right eye offends you, pluck it out. If your right hand offends you, cut it off.
Yep.
Obviously Jesus is not having everybody walk around as amputees and blind people, but he's trying to make a point.
Yeah.
Like, be radical be intentional with your plan of attack, or your escape plan is what Pure Desire calls it.
Right. No, I was thinking that I think that isn't it Romans where it talks about fleeing from sin.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Flee from temptation. Absolutely.
yeah, and I think too, I think Romans he does talk about it as well, just how I think sexual sin is just a little bit different, right? Because it's a
Hmm.
sin against ourselves. It's tied into our body as well, which I think sometimes we overlook that too, of just how different it can be, to where yeah, there's a lot there. Like we're connecting to some neurons. We're establishing different ways our brains are working and reacting to things more than we can know. And typically we're doing that at a pretty young age, where that neuroplasticity I think is a little bit more movable. As we get
We're a
older,
lot more impressionable.
a
Yeah.
lot more impressionable, right? So those habits can really sink in deeply. But that's crazy. So yeah, you ran out, left the phone. I mean,
I just
that might be the most stunning thing in the podcast, is that a young man left his phone in his
right. Yeah. Yeah.
car or in his house and drove to church. I love that.
Yeah. There's another time where I was feeling really tempted, and I walked upstairs with my phone and my laptop in hand, and I just gave it to my mom. I was like, I can't have these right now, man. I can
Yeah.
not for tonight. I can't do it. And she kind of looked at me like, really? I was like, no, I just can't do it. I can't. So then and it says, I think it's important to note too that the Bible says to flee from temptation. Don't sit with it and fight it. Flee from it. Run from it. You can't just white knuckle it. You can't just try harder. I'm not saying don't sit alone with your thoughts and fight your demons. That's another conversation that you should do. But, you can't just white knuckle it. You can't just try harder. One thing
Yeah.
that, especially in the church community too, because it's a taboo subject, one thing that the church community will say is like, oh, well, you just need to read your Bible more. You're just not reading your Bible enough. Or you just need to pray more. You just need a stronger prayer life. Like, I'm not sorry, but that's just not true. Like, reading and praying more, you should do. It should be the foundation of your plan of attack for victory, but it's not all that's going to get you through. You need to be talking to people about it. You need to be doing some digging. And this is kind of where I'm saying you need to sit with your thoughts. You got to start asking yourself why. Like, oh, it's 8 or 9 at night, and I'm starting to get this temptation. Sorry, I'm kind of a grandpa, so I go to bed early. So 8 or 9 is late for me. But like we'll say for the youngins, like 10 or 11 comes around, and you start getting those thoughts. It's like, okay, well, hold on, why? Oh, well, because it helps me sleep. It's like, does it
Yeah.
really? What
No.
what what are you really thinking about right now that you're trying to avoid?
Mm.
What next? What then? Is I think there's a podcast my mom listens to, and the guy always says, "What then?" I think it's literally called the "What Then" podcast or something like that. I think it's like a Substack or something. But
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And he's always asking himself, what then? What
Mm.
then? What then? And that's what it's got to be. You have to dig deep and figure out, start listening to your mind. Why is that check engine light on? Because if you ever work at a car dealership, sometimes people will bring their cars in and their check engine light is on, but they don't know it because they just took a piece of tape and they just put it over, like a piece of like black tape or whatever, and just put it over the check engine
Mm.
light. That's all porn is. Your
Mm.
brain is trying to cope with an injury or a wound that it's been dealt early on, and that's how you're using it to self-medicate. So then instead of just watching porn when you feel like it, ask yourself why. Do some soul searching, figure that out. An example of that is I was it was a few years ago, and I called one of my little cousins just to see how they were doing, and she was telling me how she had such a good day, and she got to go skiing with her parents, and it was super fun. It was just like a great day. And instead of being happy for her, I was mad. I was angry at her. But I was like, well, hold on, I'm going to take a step back. Why am I angry at a 12-year-old girl because she went skiing with her folks? Nah, hold on, there's something deeper than that. And then so I asked myself why, and I was like, well, how come I didn't get to do any of that stuff? I wanted to go skiing. Like, why didn't I get to do any of that stuff growing up?
Mm.
And then, and it turns out I was more mad. I was holding on to some resentment for my mom because we didn't do stuff like that because she was working freaking hard by herself to make ends meet. It's like, oh, okay, well, that's the reason why. Because you ask yourself, what's next? And eventually if you ask yourself why enough, you'll get to the root cause. You'll get to the reason. If you're being completely honest with yourself where nobody else goes in your mind but you, and you shine a light on that, you're going to see something pretty ugly. You're going to see something pretty vile, but you need to shine the light on that part of your brain. Christ knows it's there. God knows it's there. You know it's there. You just have to admit that you know it's there. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And you have to diagnose the problem. And if you don't know how to do that, go to somebody who can equip you with the tools necessary to deal with that little gremlin that you got in the back of your mind.
Yeah, and I think that's an important call out too, right? Is I think finding someone that's ahead of you that can help you, because I think that
Mm-hmm.
happens sometimes too. And I'm glad that you went back into recovery after having a bad experience, because I think that's an all too common thing that people will say sometimes, like, I tried it out, wasn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
I tried recovery out, and it's typically, I think it could be the relationship that, or the people that you might have been working with, is typically that. I mean, I think the same thing I'd say for my faith, when I grew up Catholic, and like you said, when you're in this environment where you're looking at people and like, man, you guys are just being fake to each other. Like it's
Yep.
all about appearances. That's how I initially thought about Christianity. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, if people are just
Yeah.
acting this way, then like, why would I even want to go to church? Or like, why would I even want to read the Bible if this is how people are? But
Right.
then you come to realize, well, those are people. This is Christ. These are different things. And then I think you start to realize that about recovery as well to say, okay, I link up with somebody that has good intentions, they have good wisdom, they give me good advice, they get to know me and they hear me out, they listen to me. That is a game changer too, because then you look at that and be like, oh, okay, now I can do recovery in a different way to where I'm seeing the benefits and I'm digging deeper. I'm doing the
Yeah.
work and I have someone by my side that's supportive, that's not making me feel in any way like uncomfortable about it, but still challenging me at the same time. And I think that's just an important thing to call out, right? Because I think far too often with a lot of things, you can apply it to a lot, but you just have a bad experience with somebody and you're just like, yeah, it's just not for me.
Yeah.
I tried recovery, it just didn't work.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, how deep did you go? Did you ask yourself why a few times? And like you're saying, man, I think when you start doing that in life in general, and you dig down deeper there, you start to realize more about yourself and you see the dark sides about yourself. But then you also say, hey, I can actually work through this. I can actually come to terms with it. And I really love you've said this a few times in the podcast, but just how, when you come to the truth of the matter and you're still willing to work through it yourself, and then there's other people around you that still love you and that still support you,
Hmm.
then it becomes a lot more doable.
It
You know?
does. Absolutely. It gives you that strength. It gives you that encouragement. It means everything as an addict when you're sitting there bearing your heart out to somebody and they're maybe a few years older than you or have just gone through the same thing as you and they look at you and they're like, yeah, man, I've been there. I
Yeah.
know exactly what you're going through and I know exactly how you feel. I know exactly the weight that you have on your shoulders. I know what you're dealing with. I know what you're battling. Here's a ladder. Here's a ladder out. It's like what's that metaphor, that analogy of like the soldier that's digging a hole or digging a foxhole or whatever, and he has no idea how to get out. And so then he's trying to like dig himself out, but he's just digging himself deeper. And then
Mm,
another soldier comes up and is like, "Hey, you want a hand?" And the soldier's like, "Yes, please." And so then the soldier jumps down into the hole with him, and the soldier that was digging a hole is like, "Wait, what are you doing? Now we're both stuck in here." And the other soldier's like, "That's all right. I know how to get out." And
mm,
it's like that's huge, right? Because that's what it takes. It takes teamwork, it takes effort, it takes a group of people. And one thing, we had a mental health conference at our church, I think last year, and I didn't realize this. I'm still very much learning a lot of like biblical stories and whatnot. But one thing he pointed out was Moses got burnt out. And I didn't realize that. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's Moses. Like the dude's not getting burnt out. Like he's Moses. No, he got burned out to the point where the Lord was like, hey, go get 70, which is a lot. I don't even know 70 people, but like he's like, go get 70 of your most trusted people and start like delegating some responsibilities. I'm obviously
mm.
heavily paraphrasing, but
Right.
that's the point though, is like it takes teamwork, it takes effort, it takes people coming together to raise each other up and build each other up. And another thing too, you talked about porn kind of being, I guess, its own kind of mental beast. It's like it is the most sinister addiction in my opinion, because you could be trapped on an island with it and still sin. You could be
Mm,
trapped on an island with absolutely nothing but your thoughts and still commit that sin. With alcohol, it's like, okay, just don't walk into a bar, just avoid the alcohol, just avoid the liquor aisle or whatever.
right.
It's like with unwanted sexual behavior, it's like, no, that's in my head. Even after porn, you still remember the videos. You still remember
Yeah.
various scenes
Recall.
and things. And
Hmm.
so it's like it's a special, especially a sinister kind of sin for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I think too, right? I was coming up with this when I did my most recent podcast. I was talking about, my first girlfriend and how I was basically addicted to porn before my first kiss. And the word exposed came up when I was looking up different statistics. And that
Mhm.
word really stuck out to me because I think that is very, like you're talking about your first interaction with it really was just coming from a conversation where someone mentioned something.
Mhm.
And I think that's oftentimes how it happens. Like for me, I was exposed by a friend,
Mhm.
that found it. And it's oftentimes not something just out of without anyone saying anything that you're going to seek out yourself. It
Right.
comes somewhere. It's like there's something or someone that exposes you to it. And nowadays, I think too, just social media and just this landscape, it's so saturated with it to
Yeah.
where it's not an if, it's a when it's going to
Yep.
happen. And I think that's just an important thing to think about. And the sinisterness of it is that, it's accessible.
Mhm.
Like you were talking about with alcohol or with drugs or with, I mean, gambling now it's a lot more accessible, but you still have to put in money to
You're
play.
right. 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 Right.
But with porn, I mean, it's free. I mean, all you need to do is just get on and click a few things or
Right.
whatever.
It would take
So
us like 5 seconds.
yeah, and that's like what makes it, I think, so hard, I think, to do it on your own, right? Because it's just so accessible, affordable, and you can do
Yeah.
it anonymously to where I think with other things, I mean, people can look at you and be like, oh, like Alex is drunk again.
Yeah.
Alex is slurring his words, or yeah, he's really laughing a lot. He's driving very slow. Maybe
Yep. Yep.
he's high.
Yeah.
um, or
Yeah.
hey, why does Alex keep looking at his phone and pressing buttons while the basketball game's going on?
Mhm.
But with porn, I think it's just something to where you have no clue. Like, and I think that's was interesting. It struck me too when you just were talking about when you really started to tell the truth about it. Like, no one really had a clue that this was such a big deal.
Mhm.
And I think that is such a huge thing, right? Because I think it happens with a lot of people's lives is where you feel this shame, you want to isolate, you don't want to talk to anyone about it. And like you were talking about too, I think is when, people just say, hey, if you ever need any help, let me know. But
Mhm.
what's the difference of that? And then having someone be like, hey, man, like, I know like you've been kind of just acting a little bit different, and I know personally in my life, I struggled a lot with porn. And hey, if you like, I'm here to talk about it with you.
Mhm.
Like I went through it, man. And
Yeah.
don't feel like you need to hide it. Like I'm here to be a soundboard and I'm not going to judge you.
Right.
I'm here to talk about it. I've had so many of those. I've had really good friends that it's really helped them in their life. And it wasn't me like being pushy about it or anything, but it's
No, but
just,
you're being intentional.
yeah. And it's just them knowing like, oh yeah, Mac does a podcast about this. So if there's
Mhm.
someone that you can talk to about it, like he's the guy to talk to about it. And I think like probably with you too, man, like it's like I welcome that. Like I want people to talk to me about it.
Yeah.
Because like I want to be a resource to help them and to let them know that, hey man, like it's not a deep hole you can't get out of. You can get out of it. So I know we're getting closer to 2 hours here. Probably your bedtime too, because you're such an old man.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I really want to, maybe we can land the plane on just like how did you get into just helping with Pure Desire, like in your church with you said your wife helps out too.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah,
basically, I had more and more people come to me because I've been so open with it. It's not a secret that I've struggled with porn for a long period of my life.
sure.
Like, anybody who's cared to get to know me for longer than an hour has probably picked that up or whatever, learned it, or I've shared it. I don't know. But I'm very open about it. And so I've had a lot of young men come up to me in church and it's just like, hey, like I've been
Yeah,
struggling with this, man. Like I need help. I've got an issue here, and I've got a major problem. And so I kept getting approached. And at some point, my wife started getting approached by a few women in the church as well. And
mm,
so it's like my wife's she's never struggled with that stuff, but she also did grow up in a culture where you just never talked about it. It was wrong and it's terrible and it's
yeah,
it's the worst possible thing you can possibly do. But once you get married, it's all good. It's like, well, hold on. No, I just grew up thinking this is all terrible and gross. But then that's supposed to just magically go away after we get married. So she's also kind of coming into it from that perspective as well. And so, doing this program together has helped her kind of understand where I'm coming from a little bit better.
Sure.
And so now we're able to together teach this class. And I guess how we got started doing that is like that dynamic kind of started to form. We were kind of like helping people just kind of on the side. And then my pastor is super perceptive. Like there's nothing that gets by him. And he kind of came up to me and was like, "Hey, I would really encourage you, and I'd like to invite you to, maybe try this pure desire course
Cool.
and, lead a group." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And, at the time, it kind of things started falling into place. And I'm like, "All right, well, I think the Lord's leading me to try to do this."
Right.
So I started doing the work, and it's got Pure Desire is a really big program. It's got all kinds of different classes at like different levels and all that. We're just doing a sexual integrity 101, which is kind of
Mm,
like their entry level, like get your feet wet, learn about what sexual integrity really is. And then after that, there's a bunch of other classes like Seven Pillars of Freedom, which is kind of more designed for any of these classes can be taken for men or women. But they do have certain classes kind of geared more towards a certain gender. But like Seven Pillars of Freedom, there's Betrayal and Beyond for, like betrayed wives, or like wives of husbands that were porn addicts, if that makes sense.
sure. Yeah.
And then there's like Unraveled. There's a bunch of other classes, but the goal is basically like after I've taught Sexual Integrity 101 a few times, then we'll have other people go through and then teach that class. And it's kind of like a tree. Like you start with one, and then you have people that have graduated the SI 101, and now they can teach that class. So now I can go on to teach, Seven Pillars. And then once people graduate that class, then they can go on to teach their own Seven Pillars and all that stuff. It's supposed to kind of grow in a sense. And I've got other people from other churches now coming to this thing too, which is really cool.
Gosh, that's so cool. And I think what I just always love when I'm, having guests on like yourself, man, is just like we go through your story, and if you're listening at the beginning of it and now you're at the end, right, of this podcast, you're still with us. Like look at all that growth, man. And like look at where you were at, where you were at and where you're at now. And
It's
what the
crazy.
what the Lord's done through you and your wife and your church. I mean, this is beautiful, right? Because I think in the same way, in the sense where, porn can be woven in and can expose people, the same thing like can happen where you're exposing people to the goodness of God and the healing that comes through that, through your story, through being vulnerable, through telling the truth, doing the next right thing. And it starts to, I think, unravel that spell or those shackles, those start to break for other people, not just yourself. I think that's a beautiful part. I think in recovery and living in it and that victory is that you want to serve other people. It's not just about you,
Right.
it's about all of us. And I think it's
Mm-hmm.
about the humanity in us because I think porn strips that away, literally strips when you think about it, right? Strips people naked. Uh,
Yeah.
and I think I was like Pope John Paul II said something that was a great quote, but it had something to do with it's not that porn shows, too much of a person, it shows too little.
Yeah.
It shows
Yeah.
little about the humanity of somebody,
Sure. Yeah.
not really a person, but an object. And I think
Well, and
that's
you're reducing them down to just what
yeah.
is seen.
And I think that's the sin itself, right? Is that we reduce somebody down to an object ultimately of sexual desire. And I think that's the morality part of it, right? I think anytime you're reducing somebody down, not being a human, but to something like an object or a commodity, I
Mm,
think that's wrong. Like that's just on a human level, whatever it
definitely.
is. When you dehumanize somebody, it's not a good thing at
Hmm.
all. Uh, but man, that's so cool. I'm really proud of you. And I just
Thank
wanted
you.
to say it's been an honor to have you on the podcast and for you to tell your story. It's
Yeah.
it's a motivating thing for me, man. I always love talking to younger guys too. You're around my brother's age, my little brother, and we've been recovery buddies for 3 years now.
There you go.
And we talk to each other every day. So we do a fast check-in with each other, which
Hmm.
is basically like how you're feeling, what are your activities in recovery, where's your sobriety, and there's
Mm.
two T's. There's one's like your threats, so like calling out, okay, what's going on, and then the next T is your tools. So like what
Mm.
tools am I using? But I just love talking to younger guys like yourself, man, because and I know you're an old man now, as you stated. But it gives me hope too, I think, just for younger generations of, you grew up in a little bit of a different landscape than I did, I think, with technology. And I think that's really been the thing with porn. Because, right, there's always been sexual immorality. I mean, the oldest business, really, the oldest occupation is prostitution, as they
Yeah.
say. But I think the medium for how it's transmitted has completely changed over, the last, I mean, since like basically, late 1990s, early 2000s. And then when social media came out and the smartphones around 2008 or so, that was like when I was graduating high school. That was just another leap, I think, in how addictive porn got and how widespread it got.
Yeah.
And now we're going into virtual reality, we're going into AI,
Dude.
so
Yeah.
it's more important than ever, I think, to stay grounded, as you said, and to seek out Christ. To
Hmm.
seek out like you were saying, man, when you're with somebody in a relationship and you are both pursuing God, you come closer together.
Yeah.
I think that is a really great way that you put it. But yeah, man, before we end, just any other advice for people or things that you'd like to say, just for anyone listening right though that's struggling with it, that's in it.
Um, there is victory. There is more to life. There's more beyond porn. There's more beyond sex. There's you can have much deeper relationships with your friends, with your spouse, with your partner than you can even fathom, and you can achieve that through the gospel, through Christ, because Christ at the end of the day died for you. He loves you. um, this battle that you're fighting, he's already won for you. All you have to do is say, Lord, I understand I'm broken. I understand I'm busted. I can't get there on my own, and I need your help. I need you to come into my life, be my Lord and Savior. And I accept you. I believe that you are my Lord and Savior, and I promise you, your life will get better. It will help. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but it will get better. And there is light at the end of that tunnel, and all you have to do is believe. You don't get there by works; you just get there by believing, and it'll be handled. God will fight that for you.
Oh, I love that, man. Well said. And you want to pray us out?
Absolutely, I'd love to.
All right, man.
Lord, thank you so much for just bringing us together here. It's such an honor. It's a privilege. It's super cool. I mean, I've been listening to podcasts for most of my life now, and here I am on a podcast. And Lord, I just think that's so cool that you've given me this opportunity, God. And I'm so grateful for that. And I'm grateful for your providence. I'm grateful for just everything it took to get us here in this moment with Mac and with myself. And Lord, thank you for my wife who's been by my side every step of the way, and thank you for my parents. Thank you for my friends' parents and their part to play in my life, and thank you for just loving us in spite of us. And just thank you so much, God, for dying for us and for paying that price and that sin debt that we all have, Lord. And just thank you so much for just loving us to a depth that we could only ever dream of understanding, Lord. And I just pray for Mac, pray for his recovery, pray for pray for his podcast. I pray that it blows up and he's able to reach just so many people, Lord. And I pray that you continue to use him to influence people that are struggling, and continue to use him to just show people the light, and that there is a way out. In Jesus' name, amen.
Well said, man. Well, it's a pleasure having you on. And everybody, wherever you're listening right now, keep fighting the good fight. Much love, and we'll talk to you later. Bye,
All right.
everybody. All right, man.